office and the chief of police. No, no, and then there's also. Over the woods. No, it is up, but you just go. Still there. I'm not gonna gauge.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. How you doing? Yeah. Busy last couple of nights are busy. It's a tough building down in the street. We looked it up. We worked that night in New York. Yeah. It's too bad. That's too bad.
Lights in here. To ruin business.
And whatever else is down there for particulars. A book of particulars. Yes, sir.
Extra agenda,
Got my new phone.
Good.
public agenda, any secret agendas? Hey, how are you? Do you need anything?
I'd like to call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order tonight, Tuesday, November 14th at 6:30. With me, I have Councilor Lopez, Councilor Jordan, our City Council President. I'm Linda Vacan, Ward 5 City Councilor, Councilor Bartley, Ward 3, and Councilor Lisi. So tonight, our first order of business is a public hearing on speed humps. So if I would have a motion to take up item 1.
I'd like to, second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item 1 is residents' petition to install permanent speed humps on Reservation Road. In a previous meeting, we had that area reviewed by our engineer and DPW superintendent, who is here with us tonight. And so we will hear from the citizens on the street and from our superintendent and consider what we hear. So if there are folks who want to come to the microphone, all we ask is that you give your name and address and give us any information that you feel will be helpful to us in considering this speed hump.
Just make sure the microphone's on, please. Name and address, for the benefit of those at home.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Tim Hamill. Came here with my wife Lisa, a few of my other neighbors. My wife's been living on Reservation Road her whole life. We built a brand new home there after her father had passed. It's a beautiful neighborhood. Anybody who goes up that street knows that we take care of the curb, we take care of the road, we clean the street, we take care of it, we make sure everything's good. The problem is that 99% of the vehicles that go up and down that road are going up to the reservation. They're not going to visit us. They're not going to park somewhere. They're going up to the reservation. They don't care about our neighborhood, okay? Now, over 90% of the neighbors signed that petition because they clearly see the problem. So, I mean, we're not blind. We don't make up stories. We're not all, in la-la land somewhere. People speed up and down that road. Whether it's because of the hill they're coming down, where they pick up speed, and they're not paying attention. There's a blind curve there. One of my neighbors, sir, he's going to have quite a few things to say about it. He lives on that blind curve. It's a very unsafe situation. We have 2 of our grandchildren that live with us. We have a pet dog. The street is barely wide enough for 2 cars to fit. In the wintertime, it's even worse. So, I mean, in the summertime, you got cars going down that road so fast. Why should a kid have to worry so much and stand there for like 5 minutes wondering if a car is going to be coming flying down the road? That shouldn't happen. not on that street. It's a small residential road. Another thing I'd like to bring up too is another problem we have. The signage down the corner. You can talk to the government, whoever you gotta talk to. Maybe you get somebody to fix that signage down there to clarify whether the gate is open or closed. So many people will go up the road, and they're leisurely going up the road, but then they'll hit the closed gate. And all of a sudden they're frustrated, and they turn around and they fly down that road. And I've seen people doing 50 down that road. Easy. And that's a narrow, small road. So that you can see our concerns, I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Tim LaFave. I live on 51 Reservation Road. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Reservation Road at all, but it's a very narrow road, has a slight bend in it. Our house has been at that slight bend since they moved it from the canoe club in the 1900s. My family's been on that, or my wife's family has been on that street since it was just a dirt road going into the farmer's driveway. The engineer did some sort of thing, and he figured out that 36 miles an hour was the average speed. I did the math. That means that anybody's going in between 21 miles an hour and 51 miles an hour. How many more of those people are going over 51 miles an hour? And not only that, I took width of the road. In front of Miss Lisi's house, it's 18 feet wide. All the way up the street's 18 feet wide till you get to my house. At my house, when the road bends, it goes to 19 and a half feet. That's not Cullen Culvert. When you get up the road into the entrance to the res, it is 14 feet wide. That's that road. 14 feet. I did the math on that. Gives you an average of 16 and a half feet is the width of that road, average. And I just think that somebody saying 36 miles an hour, 51 being the top average, I just feel that it's ridiculous. Also, I try to, I need to go into the road to mow my lawn. I've almost been hit a couple of times. I've yelled at state police to slow down. I've yelled at environmental police to slow down. Excuse me. I've had conversations with the state police because, they don't like to be told to slow down. But they understood where I was coming from. And both the environmental police officers that I talked to, they both said the same thing. They both said, yeah, I could see how someone would gather up speed going down this thing. I told the one of them, he said 36. He said 36. He said, that's ridiculous for this road. But anyway, also, like Tim said, there's only 10 houses on the street. 9 out of the 10 houses signed this petition. I don't understand why we had to come here to explain ourselves when we have 99% majority. I guess that's like about all I have to say, but it's kind of like taxation without representation, you know what I mean? Sorry, I hate to say it back that like that. But.
Thank you for the information you provided. And just so you know, part of the whole procedure for the speed humps requires this as part of the process. So it's not a special extra thing.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Evening. My name's Larry LaFountain. I live at 40 Reservation Road. Obviously, my neighbors have spoke. They both live across the street from me. I've lived there since '99, and I work quite a bit, but I'm there often, even at night, evenings, having to do work outside. And with the vehicles speeding by, whether it's nighttime, daytime, morning time, people bringing their animals up, just to even hike in early morning at 5:45, they're speeding. It doesn't matter what time. Even when I work out there in the afternoon, same thing. I mow about maybe 500 feet of the property on the edge of the road, tree belt, tree line, whatnot. I rake it, I take care of it. We've had to deal with quite a few incidents with people who pretty much disregard you, putting your hands up. kind of like, hey, could you slow down? We also worry about people, when I'm even working out there, I mention to people I don't even know, but that walk down the road, whether with or without kids, or just walking together, or with an animal, and I say, watch your back, walk on this side, because they're relentless, and they just they disregard to everybody. And it doesn't matter what age. It's adults. It's from 18, 17-year-old up to 65, 70. People speed up, they speed down, same as my neighbor said, whether the gate's open or closed, whether they're frustrated or not. But I also have elderly neighbors that live up the road that would generally like to walk when they could, and it kind of stops them from doing that too, even when the gate is closed. I would say it would take about 2/3 of, since the gate's open, spring to summer, everyone's enjoying, like they should, that where people don't show up as much. They're used to the up and down in the spring and summer. But like I was saying, they just really don't mind doing their business up and down as fast as they want. I would say about a good 75% are speeders. And like I say, it doesn't matter what age. And another thing is, like I said, we have neighbors up and down the road, and we spoke to them. And I mentioned the people that walk down this road. And we've gotten to know them, and they also know too. And I just want everyone to know, like, I don't want to see an incident happen, whether it's someone's animal getting hit, never mind a child, or a car accident. We've been in the road, and they just speed right around you if you stand there like this. And you're on the edge of the road. And they don't mind. I've had cones in the road in the center, and they will speed right through there too. Disregard. And like they said, we've had officers there. They ask us, we've asked for radar. They can't do it because it's not a long enough distance straight away. Also, the state police, we have had incidents that go, why are you doing this? They go, we have no other choice until someone's going to get killed, probably. I've stood out in the road just to say, is there a reason why you're going so fast? Some are nice, some just want to like slow down and try to get around you. I mean, you can't even walk up that road safely. And I used to walk up there at night with my dog into the reservation, and you're safe when you're in a reservation. They don't speed like that in a reservation. I don't know why. But on our road, they are up and down. It does not matter. And I would love to invite everyone, if they want to come to our street, sit on our property, talk, be on the edge of the road. You'll see for yourself. It's not pleasant. And we do pay taxes. And we are pretty close as a neighborhood. And we want everybody to enjoy it safely, just like we do. I don't want to have to drive over every day, speed humps, but why do you mind if you do the speed? It's not a big deal. And I see them throughout the city, and I go, why can they have them? We can't. And the street is narrow. It's not that wide. It's probably about 9.5 steps an average person to walk across that road. And there are no sidewalks. So it's not safe for anyone to walk on the right or the left, whether you're going up the mountain or down the mountain. And I worry about also like the people riding their bikes, and we warn them too. And I just want everyone to take, maybe a casual look and look for yourself. And well, it doesn't matter if it's a Sunday, it doesn't matter what day, Saturday, Friday, but when it's open, they will speed up and down. And the only thing that slows them down in the winter is they don't plow the road that wide. I love it because people aren't going to speed. And I've seen them stuck in the side of the snowbanks because it's not plowed wide, because they're coming down the road or going up, and they see usually it's a truck working up from the mountain, the reservation, and they don't have enough room, enough time to stop, and they're into the snowbank. And it's actually kind of funny to see that. And we're out there working, shoveling, snowballing. I'm not there to help them. It's because they're there for their own reason, because they chose to be speeding, not in control, and disregard to pretty much everyone on that street and other people that do use that street. And I think I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, we do pay our taxes, and we don't want to see anyone get hurt. It's all about safety. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. But you have to come to the microphone, please. You're on television.
I'm gonna wear my nice T-shirt today. One thing we've noticed since the government took over that, now it's a That's a DCR. There's been a huge uptick in traffic also because of that. Because now we're on the map. Now we're seeing these New York plates, these Connecticut plates, these Pennsylvania plates. They're coming from all over because now Mount Tom's on the map. So I just wanted to include that in there to, you know, because I can only see it getting worse. It's not gonna get any better. So the speed humps would just put that control in place that these people are not gonna be speeding up and down the road because they don't care, because they don't live there. We live there, we care.
Thanks. Is there any,
I have a couple questions.
and I wanted to let Mike. I'm gonna ask Mike to come and just give us the findings, if you would, and then I'm gonna open it up to committee members.
So there was a speed study that was done before my time. It was when Matt was still here. And he had indicated that the 36 miles per hour was the 85th percentile for the speed. But I think,
Mike, just so we're clear, what we mean by 85th percentile, that is to say that 85% or less of the vehicles are traveling at 36 miles per hour
or less.
or less.
Correct, yeah.
It's as opposed to, as the gentleman pointed out, an average, which is 50% are going 21 and 50% are going 51. Yeah, this is, when they say 36, they're saying 85% are going 36 or less. That's what the study is, just so we're clear on our math. Go ahead, Mike.
Can you tell the day of that report?
Was that like, how many
That's
years ago was that?
5 years ago?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably 5 years ago.
It's been a
It,
while.
it was based on a conversation that I had with Matt.
Okay.
I couldn't find the supporting documents in our file servers. So while the speed limit for Reservation Road is 30 miles per hour, that 85th percentile is at 36 miles per hour. It does show that people are speeding. And, you know, given the use of the road, that it is a very residential road with narrow widths, while, you know, we would prefer to see more egregious speeding to warrant traffic calming measures, I think we can get into an area of engineering judgment to say that this would warrant traffic calming measures like speed humps or, you know, other devices. So DPW, we wouldn't have any problem putting speed humps in. It looks like with the geometry, there could be two spots for speed humps.
And we would want to do that in consultation with the neighbors. The two,
I would think in the vicinity of 33 and 35, and then further up the hill past the driveway for number 80.
number 8,
80.
80. Okay.
Generally, you want them at least 300 feet
Apart.
And then with the speed humps, there would be some road painting for warning of the speed humps and then signs as well.
Be interested to hear the neighborhood reaction on 3335 Reservation Road and 80 Reservation Road as the two locations for the speed humps.
Yeah, you're talking like right at the entrance? That's right at the entrance?
3335, yeah. So what do you think of those two spots? How long is the street? Because you're supposed to be 300 feet between.
It's about 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
Are you saying closer to Northampton Street? More on the hill.
Where they're speeding up. They'll,
Right.
and what number are you?
I'm 40.
40.
I'm kind of pretty much across the other side.
Right, because part of the problem that we have gotten feedback from some people that have the speed humps, like on Vermont Street, is they'll go over one, and then they speed up, and then jam it down to go over the next one, you know, because it's like 600 feet. Well, there's no perfect answer, but. Well, if there's, so Mike, you were saying 300 feet between the speed humps, and if it's only 1,000 feet
I mean,
long, you'd be at
generally.
either end and one in the middle. I'm not sure that would do what you're looking for. You know, but I hear what they're saying about further from the gate. Is that feasible?
To put 3?
No, is it feasible to be further from the gate?
Well, then you're getting down the hill, right?
Are you saying it shouldn't be on the hill, Mike?
No, it can be on the hill.
Oh, okay.
That's fine to put them on hills. I mean, the one on Dartmouth is on a hill.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you wanted 3, we could put one near 51, one near 33, 35, and then one in between 23 and 31. I mean, it would be, that would really slow people down because there wouldn't be enough time to speed up.
Well, yeah. But if there's enough room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, we have no parking signs all over the city that are parked under on a regular basis. And so we're always calling our police department to try to enforce these things. And it's a constant challenge, but. Well, then that's a whole separate, but doable matter. But tonight, we can only focus on the speed humps. So, members of the committee, Councilor Lisi?
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. I think that the speed study was done when Councilor Alexander and I filed the order a few years ago. Yeah, I agree. The traffic is an issue. I'm walking in and out of the reservation all the time with my son, with my dog. We don't have sidewalks. And so I think you experience the speed on the street because of the sidewalks. I think because the absence of sidewalks and then the street, although it has a curve, presents as a straightaway, people do tend to pick up speed coming in because it looks like it's a straight road. But then you have that curve. And then you also, coming down the hill, pick up speed. My one question, I think the 2 speed humps would be comfortable. So actually I have 2 questions. So speed humps are different than speed bumps, correct?
Correct.
And so we're meeting the thresholds that are required to do a speed hump as opposed to a speed bump, right?
Right, it's the geometry of the bump versus a hump. And with a bump, you need to slow down a lot more in order to go over it safely. Mm-hmm. But what people have found is that there's a tendency to accelerate after a speed hump to make up for the lost time that the driver experienced while slowing down for the speed bump.
And when we have the speed humps, there's usually like the arrow indication that the speed hump is coming.
Right.
How far out do those paintings go?
Say about 50 feet or so.
Mm-hmm. And it has to be a minimum of 300 feet between the...
No, it doesn't have to be a minimum. It's just a rule of thumb.
A rule of thumb.
Otherwise, you'd have them every 100 feet.
And charge admission for the ride.
I do think that we want to catch people before the curve. And I think we also want to be able to catch people as they're coming down the hill so that they're just not completely accelerating. But I do think that the two at either points before the curve, and then also coming down the hill, not at the top of the hill, but as you're coming down, so that people see it and have to go slowly down the entire hill because they see the bump coming in advance. I think that would provide sufficient coverage, especially if we have signage alerting people that there's going to be speed humps. The paintings on the road are also going to start getting people to slow down because they know that the hump is coming. I'm open to hearing other thoughts from the committee members, but that would be the way that I think that it could work the easiest for the most benefit.
So, given everything that you've heard, would you have a recommendation in terms of the location on the street for the committee to specifically consider, or would it be better from your point of view to coordinate further with the neighbors, and
Yeah, we
if
could
we're
coordinate
inclined
with
to
the neighbors.
approve them, leave it to your discretion to provide 3 in the areas where they'll be most effective?
I think in the ordinance, it's streets with speed humps. The schedule is speed hump streets. I don't think it's specific locations for speed
Okay.
humps.
Okay.
But what we could do is go out and paint the road. You know, this is the limit of where we think we would propose a speed hump with the painting we use for utility markouts. So it would fade if you guys don't like the locations. You know, give it a couple months and the paint's gone,
With the plowing.
especially with plowing, yeah. I mean, if that would be good with you guys, there would be a way to all get on board and so you could see. Yeah,
So,
and you too, so that you guys would be able to say, yeah, this is right. And then as far as actually getting the humps in, you know, we're getting towards the end of the construction season with paving work, so this would have to wait until next year.
spring
to-
or
to
summer?
spring, yeah,
Spring.
to implement.
Can you put the evergreen ones on with theirs?
Sure,
Those are replacing ones that
that we're taking out.
were already approved. Thank you. Are
ask
there any
one
more
more question?
questions from the committee? Yeah,
So,
Councilor Lisi?
Mike, when do you think that you'll be over to do the paintings?
I think within the next few days.
Okay,
Before
great.
Thanksgiving, we can get it.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is he's going to paint the street and give us a sense of where the speed bumps would go, and then we can evaluate if we think those are going to work, or we want them in different locations.
But it's not going to be a full street painting. You know, we're just going to kind of try to give an idea of where it would be. Okay.
So make a motion
Are
to,
you
yeah, I'm
set?
comfortable with that.
Okay, so we've heard from everybody that wishes to be heard. Okay, I would just want to note that Councilor McGivern and Councilor Sullivan
Did you want to
are
speak?
in the chambers.
I think he put his hand up.
I didn't see his hand, but
Oh, hi.
that's what I thought. All right, so, Councilor,
I would like to make a motion that we go forward with the 3 speed humps.
Second.
okay, so can I have a motion to close the public hearing
So,
first?
Yeah.
so
So-
I make
so
a
moved.
motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And
the motion to do the 3 speed humps on Reservation Road.
Second.
Can we say up to 3?
Up to 3?
Yeah, up to 3.
I think 3 will be beneficial. I go there a lot
Given
and
what
walk. So,
we're
but
hearing.
anyway, I'm only one.
anyway. Okay, so we have the motion to approve up to 3 speed humps on Reservation Road. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So the motion carries 4-0. This will be recommended to the city council at our meeting next Tuesday, and you have a sense of the timeline from our superintendent.
All right, good
Thanks for
luck.
coming down.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Take care.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that it for Mike?
Easy?
You want to do 2 and 3, or?
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking to
What do we
see, I
have?
think these people are here for Center Street, maybe?
Anybody here
Do you want
on?
to go out of order?
Yeah, I don't know, sure, what's,
It's on the permit parking,
Number 8, right?
9.
9.
Okay, make a motion to suspend the rules to go to item number 9.
Second.
All in favor?
Or,
So item 9, filed by Counselor Jordan, order that the ordinances section 86-106 permit parking be amended to reflect the following changes. 1, that not more than 2 parking stickers be allowed per household. 2, that the ordinances reflect that Center Street is only addresses 1 through 20 Center Street from North Canal to Lyman Street. We also had added an amendment at our last meeting that the stickers had to be for vehicles registered to the household.
correct.
Yep, that's what we did.
So,
To be for vehicles registered
now,
to the households.
this isn't a public hearing, but I did get a call from at least one member of Center Street who was here tonight, so I didn't know if the committee wanted to suspend rules to hear.
Sure.
Yes.
Suspend the
Okay.
rules to read whatever communication concerned citizen had.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, well, I'll summarize it.
It's,
The communication that I got from the resident down there indicated to me that the establishment of the permit parking down there was in the distant past, and the people that had petitioned for it no longer live there. And over time, it has become more problematic for the people who live there. Some, for example, who use a work vehicle as their vehicle as part of their work commitment and benefit, that then are prohibited from parking it there. So other unintended consequences, I guess you could say. And so I'm not sure whether that can be addressed under what we're doing, for this particular order, but we are in the process of amending the ordinance. And so it would seem that it could be considered by the committee if we wish.
Sure. We can consider that. Okay.
So I think I have
wanted
captured the
it-
feedback I got. I can't tell you that it's everybody there,
But
that
that
is-
particular person wanted an exception for a commercial vehicle if the person lives there.
Well, the person was just really making the point that there might be one, there might be more.
He didn't have one.
I'm not sure. No, I think he may have, but that there's also another person who also does. So that if we in particular added the amendment that said the vehicle has to be registered to the residents, that would create a problem.
I see.
In that regard.
I see.
But the gist of the conversation, which is not at this point accompanied by a petition of the residents,
Got it.
and I'm not sure about the sense of all of the residents, was that the creation of the permit parking was dated. It's no longer particularly sought by the people who live there.
We don't know that.
Correct. So as I said, we don't have a petition before us in that regard.
We
But-
did at one time in the past.
Correct. Correct, which is why it was established.
Many years ago, correct.
Yes, so,
It looks like we have some concerned citizens that would like to give us their
Are-
thoughts about permit parking on Center Street.
so under our suspension of rules, are we extending it to allow the public to speak?
Yes,
Okay, all in favor?
within certain time limits,
But please just briefly
make your points.
and please give us your name and address.
Some need,
Most of us know it, but
some need no introduction.
for
Everyone knows his name's
official purposes.
Charlie O'Connell. I live on 5 Center Street in beautiful downtown Holyoke. We have issues down there with parking. Before we had the permits, we had no issues. 2 angry old men wanted reserved parking in front of their house. They pushed it through the city council. It went through as a permit. Half the people on the street, so a couple people came to me, complained out in the alleyway about the new rule. They hardly spoke English. One of them did enough, and they asked me if I knew anything because they knew I had this railroad truck and I must know somebody in the city. And I said, well, I know a few people, yes. And the argument they gave me was that she takes care of her brother. Brother lives upstairs, doesn't speak a word of English, in Puerto Rico. Now, the poor guy is crippled, can't really do anything, relies on his sister to take care of him. She lives there with him now, but she uses her mother's car. So now she says, I'll have to take my brother and go someplace else because I cannot get a sticker. This law simply is not good for the street. Most of the complaints I'm getting is, I did a poll on the street, way of a, what do they call it, a list of everyone that wanted it and who didn't want it. 3 people want it, so far 26 do not. Well, there's 28 or 29 families down there, so it doesn't have the support of the local community, and I'll bring those numbers before the city council if you'd like them, with their signatures. I don't like the words petition and so on. I'm a pro-Holyoke kind of guy, you know. I care about the city and its people. I sometimes get at loggerheads with people if I get strongly issued with something, but generally speaking, I have a great deal of respect for everyone in this room, and I know you all. And we've had issues, we've all had issues over the years, but I do care about the city and its people. You know, I'm not a politician. I'm a railroad superintendent. That's kind of like a politician, you know? But what I'm trying to do here is to straighten out the neighborhood. The people down there do not want to permit parking at all. There's 3 that do, and one of them's complaining because she bought herself an SUV about twice the size of my Ford Railroad truck, which is nothing but a pickup. And she can't park it in front of her house, and she's complaining because too many cars are there and she can't swing it in. Well, she chose poorly. That's not my fault. But the neighborhood is what's more invalid. And I've got some very poor people down there. A lot of them don't own their car. That doesn't mean their car is illegal. It's their sister's car, it's their mother's car, it's their brother's car. That's how they live. And they live there because of the lower rent. I'm a landlord down there, and I don't charge a lot of rent because I was born, raised with a silver spoon in my mouth. I'm an O'Connell. But I feel differently, you know. I'm worked for everything I have. And I don't want working people, and these are working poor. And when I talked to the people that were arguing the point with me, this is what they said. They said that everyone over there is Section 8, everybody's poor, no one has a job. Well, that's a funny thing. Come morning, there's no cars on the street, so they must be going somewhere every day. You know, they're just hard-working poor people, and they don't have a lot of resources. That's why they're living there.
Right. So if I can just interject, the reason that you heard the word petition is that it was a petition process that initiated the permit parking. And so we
have a petition which we will send to the city council.
Yeah, so that's all. It's just so
Right
that
now,
we know that we understand the change of heart, given that it was a formal petition that
Right.
made it into effect.
The railroad truck's a particular problem because I have no other place to put it. Railroad truck's been stationed here in Holyoke. We have a responsibility to respond to emergencies on the railroad just like anybody else. We help the police department give access to the tracks. More often, the HG&E has a power line down and they can't get anyone out there. That's what that truck does, and it can run on the railroad tracks. It's just a pickup truck, but it can run on the railroad tracks. We got a crew cab so we could put 4 police officers or 3 track guys, so there's only 3 guys on the department, you know? But that's what that truck is down there for. I could easily put it back in Westfield, but the problem when I do that, it takes me an hour and a half to get a response to the city of Holyoke. And that's why it's there. And that's the real reason, because I have a car. I can drive back and forth to work. You know, that's not the issue. The issue's down there. That's why I asked to do it. And the general manager at the time said that's what he wanted to do because he wanted to be a good neighbor. And the city has a responsibility and duty to the city. It is the city's railroad, and we wanted to give the best response we could when an emergency occurs. And that's why the truck is there. That's honestly why it is there. It's fully equipped with a chainsaw, first aid, rescue equipment. All that stuff is on that truck. And we've used it a lot with HG&E, once with the fire department, several times with the police. And when there's problems with the bridge hits, it's there instead of taking me an hour. They can't pull a truck out under the bridge unless the railroad's there. And so we have to be there. So we hold everything up. So that's why we station. If anyone wanted to know what that white truck was doing down there.
I wanted to make a point.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
Okay, so that's what's going on. There'll be a petition presented to you in probably a week or so.
Okay,
But we would prefer that the ordinance come to a close. You know,
Thank you.
I've been down there, like I said, a long time, since '91, and we never had a problem. It's typical of anything. It is the people's street. That belongs to the people of Holyoke. It's not reserved parking for anybody on that street.
okay, thank you,
Maybe look at it.
thank you. Are there any other folks from Center Street here to speak on this?
I think I'm the only one.
Okay.
If this comes to another
I just
discussion,
wanted to
then we'll
check,
raise it.
since we suspended the rules, yes. Thank you. Counselor Lisi?
Thanks. So the order, Counselor Jordan, that you filed, is this trying to bring Center Street into?
No,
It's already in.
that's already been law for 20 years.
Already there.
Yes,
This
I
is a
understand, but-
housekeeping measure
86-106.
as requested by the clerk, which was kind of where the point I wanted to make is, this is already the law. What she's doing, as you know, is we've done a lot of review of the parking, you know, because there's a lot of number of different streets that have permits. And so she's been sort of charged now with administering this. And what she's saying is, here, because it's a finite number of parking spaces, she wants to have a fair as well as sort of process that can be more streamlined and just sort of administratively, like, we're not talking about all of Center Street, we're only talking about 1 through 20 Center Street, and in this particular section, and that she's saying, so you don't get a situation where one person comes down, this house has 4 stickers, and this house, oh, sorry, we ran out of spots, you didn't get your 1, so you're out of luck. So she wanted to create a fairer system of saying, well, everybody gets at least 2 before, you know, they run
You're
out.
referring to our city clerk.
I'm referring to Brenna Murphy McGee, who wrote this and asked me to file it on her behalf.
But the ordinance that we are going to adopt tonight that has all of the different streets that have permit parking on them, it says per household. So you don't have to own your car in order to get the permit sticker for the household. It seems like you just need to
Correct.
prove residency as opposed to show that you own the vehicle.
There's a request, you're exactly right. In the original, there was a proposal to add an amendment that says the stickers had to be registered to that household.
At the last meeting. That was an amendment.
That was a
made
that was
in
a
discussion.
suggestion. The,
It hasn't been approved. still.
Kevin, could live with that or not live with that, because I think if we have 2 per household, does it really matter if it's my cousin's, my grandmother's, my whoever's car? If each house got 2, it would be fair. Everybody would have 2, and we wouldn't have to do the other piece. But, you know, if you want to use your 2 and you give it to your mother who comes every day, and you use 1 for yourself, you're only getting 2. So, yeah.
And then furthermore, is it a sticker on the car or is it
Sticker on the car.
as opposed to a plaque?
Sticker on the car.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
So basically, in a nutshell, Madam Chair, is the clerk said, you know, 2 stickers for the household, and that it's just for those 1 through 20 Center Street.
Right, and I think we can separately consider a petition if it comes before us relative to
Well, right.
Center Street. Then it can
If
be
the
either
whole-
taken out of the
Yeah, if the whole
ordinance or
neighborhood
left in.
decides they're petitioning us to remove the
Right.
whole thing altogether, then let's cross that bridge when we get to it, right?
Exactly.
Well, if somebody wants to bring it, then let's do that.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'd
on
like to make
this?
a motion to adopt this.
And we have the legal form in front of us, right?
Do you want it with 1 and 2 only? Because
I'm with 1 and 2 only at
it
this point.
came amended as we had requested,
Oh, did it?
I believe.
It-
Hang on.
But it reflects, it's just adding them to the list of permitted parking, and those requirements are already part of the permit parking ordinance. So limit to per household?
No, we had added the language that was also added that we would now have to delete is we added all vehicles for which a parking permit is sought shall be registered to said household.
Okay.
So if we want to go back to the original language, we just need to amend that, delete it, and
Yeah.
stay with the original request.
Right.
So is there a motion?
I'll make a friendly amendment to delete that
Second.
second sentence saying all vehicles for which a parking permit is sought shall be registered to said household.
Okay, so we have a motion before us with a second to amend the legal form to remove the sentence that had been added requiring registered to the household. So so the changes would include, one, that not more than 2 parking stickers be allowed per household, and 2, that the ordinances reflect that Center Street is only addresses 1 through 20 Center Street from North Canal to Lyman Street. Okay, so that's our motion. with the
I think there's some
amendment.
discussion on
Counselor
it.
Barton?
So I'm just trying to get a clarification. So if they're not registered to the household, they're just, how do you want the clerk to account for it, I suppose, is my question.
Just say, she'll
She's gonna
say,
issue
I
2
live at
for the
5,
address.
I live at 5 Center Street. You get 2 at 5 Center, period.
Show some other proof of residency.
Yeah, I mean, once you get your 2, you can only get 2. So if you use them up by giving them to whoever that doesn't live there, you're getting 2.
Okay, so which sounds reasonable, so the way that, if we just strike that second sentence, leaving the first sentence, that'll make it
Yeah, I
crystal
think
clear?
the second sentence is just overkill.
Well, right.
I mean, you would need the second sentence if you didn't have the first sentence. Like, say you didn't want to put a two-car limit, then you'd have to say something like, well, we don't want to put a limit of cars. It's just everybody that is registered at that house can get a car. That could be 3, 5, 7. But once you say 2 to a house, I don't think you have a problem after that.
Right, and I think we gained more information as to the circumstances where the vehicle would not necessarily be registered to the resident.
Well, then,
So,
yeah, you
you know,
avoid the commercial
so-
vehicle issue.
Right, and the relative
Exactly.
that's helping issue.
Or a home health aide that comes.
Right.
You know, you're just saying you get 2 per, and there you go.
Okay, and so one size fits all for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
and as we noted, I think the Ward 6 streets are really, it's really a canard is why they're there. Nobody really has permits, right, Counselor? So nobody, that's just,
Correct.
okay.
The goal is, if those wish to be enforced, they could, but at this point, most of those people have driveways anyways, and the genesis of why that's in there and why neighbors like it, at least if nothing else, is actually not because they want a permit system. They want to avoid the problem, which is why we created the ordinance, which is people at the high school parking all over the streets. And this way, by having the permit parking signs, it's avoided the problem of the kids and other people with cars and staff infiltrating Carter Street, Anderson Avenue, Mackenzie to go park at the high school. So that was the real, and the hospital for that matter. It was viewed as, so it's worked because it's stopped the problem. But the neighbors are good as is.
Not seeing anyone else. On the motion, we have a motion and a second.
To strike that second sentence, right? Yeah.
The amendment was to strike the second sentence, and the motion is to adopt as amended. That's on the table, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0, that passes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
What, that was,
I'm not
so that's item, that takes care of
We can
item
Go back
9,
to
right?
regular order, I don't know.
Were there any other special requests?
Not that
Anybody
came
here
to
waiting
me.
for a special item? All right. Okay, let's just get into it then, I guess. Items 2 and 3, I make a motion to take 2 and 3 off the table.
All in favor? Aye. Item 2, ordered that the City Council Ordinance Committee hold a joint public hearing with the Planning Board on the creation of zoning ordinances related to recreational marijuana retail locations. Item 3, ordered that the City Council Ordinance Committee hold a joint public hearing with the Planning Board on the creation of zoning ordinances related to recreational marijuana cultivation and production. So we had public hearings. The public hearing is closed. We've had discussion and debate around the draft ordinance. We have an updated draft provided to us by Crystal tonight. Thank you, Crystal, for our review.
Are there copies of the updated draft?
Yes. Can you give that to Joe? Mike, do you need one? Or?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I looked a couple times. You must have taken a break.
Excuse me, the last item on the list tonight, if there's going to be no discussion or if it's going to be tabled,
Well, I will just say, as a matter of order, point of order, at our last meeting, there were representatives from the fire department here. We asked them how much time they needed for language. They said they didn't need any time. They had the language, and we tabled it to tonight, expecting that they would be providing us with language. So that was the basis on which I thought they would be here.
okay, well, I'm going to be sitting here till the end to find out they're not here. We have the vice president of the union also waiting anxiously to hear what they have to say if there's going to be nothing said.
Well,
Should we?
we're interested in accepting language relative to the matter from anybody that's involved in the matter. So for our purposes, if there were people here that wished to present that, we would take it. However, if that's not the case, I can only invite them again to the next meeting.
So could we leave it tabled?
We can. If there's nobody here to present on it,
Unless somebody has
we will.
information they want to present to us this evening.
Right. If somebody does, we'll hear it, but if nobody does, we'll leave it tabled.
If I may, Linda,
Counselor Lopez?
I think that we need to be very clear and direct, make sure that we email or write to the fire department, and because otherwise the order is gonna stay here. I think that we need to do that in order to get the information that we need. I mean,
Well, they were here at the
yeah,
last meeting.
I know.
I will follow up on that if it's the pleasure of the committee to leave it tabled.
Yeah.
That would be fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so
Do we need to reopen the public?
the public hearing is closed.
Okay, very good. Just thank you for refreshing my memory. All right, so we're just discussing the item then.
Yes, so what we have before us is an amended draft based on discussion and amendments made at the last meeting.
And it looks like it's incorporated our amendments, so that's appreciated.
And we also had a discussion of timelines relative to the public hearing. And so we have been waiting for the planning board, who has not provided us with a recommendation at this time. And from the time that the public hearing was opened in September, it appears the timeline requirements have been met to act.
We're well beyond 21 days. Okay, great.
And I'm not aware of any correspondence from the planning board at this time.
If the phone don't ring, we'll know it's them.
So
All right, so we have
we
the
can
item
look
before
over,
us, and
we do, we have the item before us, we
So
have the
let's-
draft, everybody should have a copy.
I'll
Can
just
I ask
continue.
a question about the draft?
Counselor Lisi, yes.
Maybe it's a question for the committee or for Crystal, but is this the red line copy from the version that we last had before us? So are all the changes detailed in the boxes on the side?
An original, then I redlined between medical and what Marcos and I provided.
Can you go to the mic? We should have a mic over here.
So you should have, we started with an original, is this on?
Yeah.
That Marcos and I provided to you. We did a red line between medical, what was already in our ordinances, and that version. This is a red line of what that version was.
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yep.
So this should be like your final red lines, I guess.
Yep.
Yes, and we did a side-by-side comparison,
Okay, so
The last
ad
one,
hoc,
to
at
the-
the last meeting.
to the current ordinances.
Yeah.
And I was just checking my notes. I think there was one change that you had mentioned, and I'm just hunting for it, that I maybe had a question about what you meant by it. So I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
So do you want a microphone from the desk so you don't have to keep getting up and down?
It'll be a lot easier. Give you that one.
It's up to you. It's up to you.
all right, well, can I take the
Counselor
floor?
Jourdain,
Oh,
you may.
thank you.
I think this
Just
is,
to tee this up and continue to stimulate the conversation, I would like to just say that I thought Marcos and the law department did a particularly swell job to incorporate our current laws and to make them indicative of where we're going to incorporate both recreational as well as medical. I thought we took a very exhaustive approach to comparing it to the current ordinances. I thought this is a fine new ordinance. It contemplates all of the medical side, the retail side for recreational, as well as this new thing called marijuana testing facilities, if we should ever have one of those come along. I thought it came out great, and I'm very supportive of this. And we'll have our recreational marijuana, and we'll have our medical marijuana, and everybody can have all their marijuana that they want. And so we have an ordinance that allows as much marijuana as they want in these zones, and you can just be fruitful and multiply as much marijuana as you wish out of them. So for everybody that loves marijuana, Godspeed to you. And I think the council's done a great job here to do our job, and we didn't need any moratoriums or any different this. We took the charge led by Councilor Lisi and for a lesser extent Councilor Sullivan to really get about it. And here it is, November 2017, and we have an ordinance that we can be proud of and go forward. And it will serve as a good basis for the future if the council would like to make any alterations once, next summer comes along, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, if things are as they are. So looking forward to getting this adopted.
Councilor Lisi?
Thank you. This is a really parsimonious piece of legislation. It's really well organized. It's really straightforward. I think that from what I understand here, and forgive me for not being able to make that last meeting that was called on the fly, but it seems that all uses of marijuana as defined by the law are now incorporated in here.
Yep.
And permissible. However, they're only allowed in the IG zones.
Correct. Which is the current law.
And we're not going to currently need then the moratorium. Is that where you
No
went?
moratorium. Moratorium free.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of parsimonious legislation. One-stop shopping,
Yes.
all under one roof. Okay.
Motion to adopt as
Councilor
amended,
McGivern.
unless we have some thoughts from the left.
Councilor
Oh,
McGivern.
lest we forget the hand from the left here, Counselor.
Thank you.
And we have the question from legal.
Go ahead.
You're first, Councilor McGivern.
I just wanted to,
Oh.
hold on. I just wanted to point out the chart that needs to be updated is not provided to you.
Oh,
I
the
figured
4
that was
point,
simple enough.
3 point, yeah,
It'll
just
be
up.
IG and
You'll
CC
you'll
across
update
board
the chart.
for the council. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern.
I too apologize. I couldn't make that last meeting on Thursday, whatever it was the 125th anniversary of the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh,
But
nice.
my only question, I think it was the question the last meeting I did come to, is, and I just I'm throwing this out just for a quick idea of why industrial park is not part of the zone that would allow for manufacturing of marijuana.
Oh,
Well, there was discussion and feedback at the last meeting from people who are actually interested in doing it. My understanding that IP was included in case people wanted to build new. So we had a discussion around the whole idea of the urban renewal, and the use and what people have been coming into the city talking about reusing the buildings and that whole plan that we have all embraced. And the IP district was not in keeping with that.
But I agree, but at the same time, I don't see reasons why we have to eliminate IP, because new construction is incredible new growth to our tax base, and, something that, once new construction, is going to be around sometimes a lot longer than renovated 100-year-old buildings. Why would we not want to explore both?
After we had the discussion relative to the purpose and the whole revitalization and the urban renewal plan, it was the will of the committee to stay focused in that regard. There was also put forth the notion that if these particular activities are in one zone, then the security issues will be more readily affected. And there was actually support for that from the people that would be doing the business from a security perspective. Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, Joe, one of the things that I thought was actually something that kind of took me aback was that there was actually a great deal of consensus that from the people who are proponents, that is the prospective owners, that they like the notion that they're getting this as a corridor at Lower Appleton Street, and that they're creating an area that this is sort of like, I don't want to call it the innovation district, so I'll just call it the growing district or manufacturing district of this, that they like the idea that this is really clustered, that there was a lot of advantage to that. I suppose, this is something the council could consider down the road. There was a mention, to your point, about John Kelly Way. Potentially there is one parcel there that potentially could be available if somebody wanted to build everything brand new, brick and mortar up. The council could cross that bridge if that was really the only spot in IP that, listening to Marcos, that there was maybe an appetite to do it. But you guys could down the road, if you got a petitioner and they said, hey, we want to change this to allow a new construction. At this point, it doesn't look like that's really needed. And the other thing to point out was, if we lose a little bit of the focus off of cultivating the IG as sort of the spot, and people sort of say, well, I really don't have to go there, I could go to IP, it takes a little bit of the steam or the focus out of us really trying to revitalize the downtown and create that corridor effect, which actually I think people, whether you're pro, anti, whatever your position is, that's kind of a neat effect if, and they're sort of synergizing a lot of capital there. So it seemed like something everybody liked. I think that's the long and short of it. To pick up like the one parcel in IP that maybe would be at John Kelly, I don't think it at this time warranted an inclusion in the zoning, and keep sort of staying with that. But, if there was the absolutely great project that everybody felt, then, maybe down the road, but there isn't any proposals at this point there. That's a long answer to a very good question that you raised. It's a good question.
Because new construction is so important.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have special permit in the, which I agree with.
Yeah.
So that kind of, special permit still kind of controls what what we're trying to do is to make sure it's in the right location.
I think the concern too, though, is there's really only one desirable location, potentially parcel in IP. The problem is IP is in more than just that one desirable location. I suppose you could try and fight it on a special permit request to say it's not the ideal spot, but I don't know, it just sort of opens a bit of a Pandora's box at this point, whereas we're really getting what we wanted in terms of what the manufacturers want And we had a couple of them come and say they really like they actually felt that we should stay with IG only at this point.
Are you on?
Thank you.
Counselor Bartley?
So I just want to, in 710.4, it says any and all establishments may only be allowed. So is that what we intended? May only be allowed?
Yes, because a special permit is a may, not a
It's a
shall.
permissive, that's more permissive language, as opposed to, the old language was shall. The view would be shall. We could take out the word, may only be, yeah. The view was shall be allowed, was basically saying you shall grant it.
Well, okay, so when I see the word may, it always sounds like there's some flexibility there, so that means,
It may or it may not,
Well, that,
depending on the proposal, and if
okay,
it
well, if it's
met
may
all
or
the
may only be allowed
criteria.
in IG zone, all right. Okay, so we've limited to IG zone by this language, I guess that's because that was our intent.
that was our intent.
Okay, and this
Yes.
language does that. Okay. Under 710.5.2E, there's a bunch of X's for the CMR, so we've got to clean that up, I guess.
Which one was that?
We don't know what it is yet, right?
I understand.
Yeah, 'cause they haven't-
I understand we don't know it.
I don't think they've issued those CMRs yet, that's why.
Okay,
so-
so what do we do with that then?
Well, what we're saying is that when the Cannabis Control Commission issues their regs, I would say we allow either the law department to make that edit, or the council will have to amend it when those are issued.
Okay, so that's another location as well, so there's another XXX in
Yeah,
4.E, I guess, okay.
4.8, yep.
All right. Then, does this special permit application require a city fee
Oh, an application fee?
yes. Is there a city fee proposed for an applicant?
What's in the current ordinance? I forget.
I think it should be at least $5,000.
I don't see a fee in here, so I'm just curious as to whether we had contemplated that or.
That's a good
whether we
question.
wanna
That's a good
consider that.
question.
I don't think we talked about that too much. I forget I think the current fee is only like $100 or something. Do we want to create a special fee, or?
There's the whole entire host community agreement that they have to pay, plus, I mean.
They're going to be making millions of dollars.
Yeah, so I'm going to propose a $500 fee for the special permit application. That's my motion.
I'll second that. I mean, $500 is pretty reasonable.
Are we talking only about this particular?
Any of these, any permit under
marijuana.
this ordinance would be $500.
So the other
$500.
remain at 100?
Huh?
The other permits, the other.
Oh, yeah, just this ordinance, just a permit here would be $500.
So we have a motion with a second on the application fee to be $500. Is there any discussion on that? Counselor Lisi?
I would still like to see if we had a fee in the former medical marijuana special permit.
It's a whole different thing anyway.
Well, we're not distinguishing, so,
Right.
you know, so this includes the testing, because we're not differentiating the different types of subcategories of use or modes of production, it may be onerous for the testing facility, for example, so. I don't know. I just don't know what type of activity is going to happen there exactly.
Well, 500 wouldn't be onerous, but if we said something like 5,000 on a retail center, that would be kind of a lot of money, I would think.
What are special permit fees for
It's got to be at least.
drive-through?
Oh, that's got it, 100. Those are all 100.
And I mean, that's a retail business also.
What's a liquor license?
I mean,
Liquor
Kevin, I'm not going to
licenses,
squabble over
those are for
500 or
sale.
100. I mean, I don't have a problem with them paying $500. Probably the 100 is too low on the other side of it, right?
So there's nothing in medical regarding a fee. I know for drive-through, I think we just referenced the ordinance that
We just updated.
has the fee schedule for special permits, which I think right now is $100.
I mean, the theory behind fees is they're supposed to cover our administrative expenses of reviewing this. theoretically, I mean, 500 seems reasonable, right? I mean, we have to pay an aide to, you know, docket this, the clerk does copies, I mean,
Sure.
500, I mean, you know, I don't think an applicant would probably care one way or the other on 500 bucks. If you said 5,000, that would be a lot.
No, that wasn't said. So,
Counselor Bartley?
Crystal, what's the most efficient way to do this? If,
So you could look at the special permit ordinance and maybe make a specific spot there where you want to do a higher fee for a special permit, and that way, as you change that, any other ordinance would change along with it. You could do a specific one for just this ordinance. That's really left up to you, how you want to edit this along the way, or if in your mind you want to start issuing higher fees for special permits, then it may make more sense to change the special permit ordinance, and that way changes across the board.
We can't do that
No.
under this.
I'd rather do this one and get it done.
I just want to ask a question.
Did you want
so-
the, Counselor Bartley?
No, I just assume make the amendment, stands. It's on.
Right,
I
right, but
understand.
you had another question, I thought. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you wanted the mic.
No, I think
You're
we're good.
good?
We're good, yeah.
Okay, so we have an amendment to have the
Are
application.
you okay with the 500 application?
Counselor
Yeah,
McGivern?
yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm
Are
good
you
with
on the
that.
amendment? Oh, okay.
I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay, so before us, we have the amendment to add an application fee of $500 under this ordinance. All in favor?
So,
Aye.
aye. So
Aye.
she'll put under 710-6 somewhere.
Yeah. I think Joe wanted to ask a question or
Counselor
something.
McGivern?
And I apologize because I've only had this for 15 minutes, but we're dealing with manufacturing, which I know is what the committee's been working on, and I applaud that because I think it's important to get whatever language we need forward as quickly as possible. With the retail dispensary part of marijuana, on this draft it says that some zones have been deleted. Is that part of the vote this evening?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going forward to allow retail
Yes, retail allowed.
in IP,
IG
IG.
Yeah,
only.
It's all allowed.
everything allowed. Can't get enough.
I'm glad
Give me
you
some
do,
right
David,
now.
you know?
I wish I could smoke it at the meetings.
Doesn't do anything for me. But, I mean,
But
that
it's all about the comedy, Joe. That's the,
that is,
How's that working out?
come again, Crystal? There's a,
Drive-through.
With our new lighting here, we could probably grow plants.
oh, is that right?
And they're free.
There's,
We're not
there's
paying
more
any.
pot shops than Dunkin' Donuts in one of the
Everything
states.
allowed, everything allowed in IG.
So you will be,
Counsel-
you will be able to issue a permit.
maybe.
Are you all set, Counselor?
Thank you, I think.
Well, it's still open for debate. We're debating and discussing, so.
No, I understand.
So-
So's the planning board right now, too, you know.
Oh, well, they've had a long time.
They've had their time, they had their shot, and
Yeah.
Counselor
blew it.
Counselor Lisi?
Thanks. So, again, with the structuring of the legislation in this way, there's some trade-offs here. So we're erasing all the distinctions among the different subcategories of uses. We're erasing all the distinctions between modes of production, retail, the testing facilities. That erases all the distinctions and puts all marijuana activity into a single zone. The trade-off is, especially on the manufacturing end, because we're not considering IP, we did already lose at least one project to West Springfield in the same vicinity as the John Kelly Way. That's what Marcos came before us to say. So, you know, the plus side is we're getting all the uses in and we're starting to move forward. What we lose is when we don't have the distinctions to say we could allow for, you know, manufacturing in multiple zones or the medical marijuana dispensary in multiple zones. That is not achieved by this piece of legislation. Does that make sense? So it's,
We'll see.
you know, right? We figure out what the trade-offs are.
Well, and here's the other
The
thing is.
council will decide. We're only recommending.
I will say this, and why I think, you know, one of the things everyone should consider as we're going through this is the fact that you can build on this down the road, right? I think everybody's in agreement with the structure. And then if the decision is 6 months from now, a year from now, you know what, we'd like to have this particular retail is allowed in this additional zone, or this is allowed in IP, or the council wants to do that, you could do that, you know? I think as opposed to just flying out of the gate with all the zones, which was what was listed in, as one of the potential options in the first iteration, you know?
Oh,
so.
there's one other point that I wanted to make, if I
Councilor
may.
Lisi.
So the zones that were deleted were only deleted from the newly created draft of this version. They're not being deleted from current ordinance.
Right, it's not in the current ordinance, yeah. you
Right,
need to-
right. And Counselor McGivern, I know you haven't had a long time to look at this, but this language is the medical marijuana language in
Yes.
essence.
Yes,
That,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, let's move.
So we've all made our points. Some of us are holding our nose and voting for part of this. Some of us are.
Hey,
No pun intended, right?
I'm voting for this, obviously, on the basis that, you know, I think it strikes a good balance and that it allows all these uses, medical and recreational, you know, but not my first choice for the community, but I think it serves as, I think it's well thought out, and I thought Marcos and the law department did a nice job, and I think the committee did a nice job. So, you know, I think this is a workable compromise for everyone under the new law. And we move forward and we'll see how it all turns out, right?
Mm-hmm. That's all we can do is.
Yep.
ask
So
you
I'll
to
make a recommendation that it be adopted
Second.
do As amended.
as amended. What we have here in front of us, yes.
And which order, are we adopting both orders? Are we, is that how we're structuring the vote? We're adopting both
Yeah,
orders?
because your order had separation between retail and manufacturing. We merged them all into one.
One document.
Yep.
Correct.
So,
Just before we vote on this, I just want to check with Crystal if she found her question.
she's good, okay.
Okay. Then we have the motion before us. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed?
Did you send an electronic version of this around?
She did.
You did? Okay. I'll look for it then.
I sent everything to Ryan and Linda and let it filter from there.
Oh, all right, maybe
Didn't
send
get
it,
too far.
send one around the horn to everybody, because somehow that must have not trickulated all the way.
Yeah, especially because I'm sure other folks want to see it before the meeting.
Exactly. Well, this should be in the packets.
That's by rule.
That's gonna be in the packets, yeah.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right, good to get that over
Moving
with.
onward. I'll accept a motion to take up. the
Item
next
number 4,
agenda.
please.
Where the heck did my agenda go?
I don't know, mine disappeared also.
Hide it. I don't have it.
Oh, sure, I meant for everybody. Oh, I even made sure there were 5.
I know there's one over there not being used, so. I love to share.
Have to grab another one.
Yeah, I just did too. Okay, so, all in favor of taking up item 4?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Item 4, that the City of Holyoke creates an ordinance that requires a group or business that hands out or exchanges needles be required to have the needles marked with a specific color. This will help our Board of Health and Police Department identify where the needle originated from. We received a correspondence, which you all have a copy of. We just received it tonight. That's what I was just going to do. Dated November 9th, needle exchange color coding. Dear counselors, in response to an order filed by Counselor Leahy regarding the request for the needle exchange to mark their needles with specific colors, I've spoken with the City of Holyoke Needle Exchange and the FDA to determine the plausibility of this request. The FDA, as well as the representatives from the Needle Exchange who spoke with the council on this matter, have advised that any tampering with the needles would be non-compliant with federal regulations. There are specific private label provisions from the FDI when a company wishes to add a distinguishing label or mark to their needles that must be done during the manufacturing process. According to the FDA, all needles are required to be marked by the manufacturer. For any purchaser who wishes to have their own identification on the needles, the manufacturer would create a label for that set of product with both the company that the needles are created for as well as the manufacturer of the needle. The needles are then sterilized and packaged per regulation and shipped to the purchaser. The Holyoke Needle Exchange is linked with the buyer program and does not buy direct from the manufacturers in order to minimize costs. Further research also states the color coding system of needles is based on gauge and sometimes the specific use of each needle. Therefore, any private labeling or color coding system would not be feasible for the program to implement. If you have any questions or need anything further, please feel free to contact me. Signed by, our Assistant City Solicitor, Crystal Barnes. I thought it was the Needle Exchange people that were supposed to get back to us. Councilor Jourdain.
So I happen to have an opportunity to talk to the law department regarding this, and what it appears to be is it was our original, or perhaps general understanding, that color coding had some sort of no particular significance other than this happened to be the color caps, and that there was a level of optionalness to it, that basically requesting the Needle Exchange would purchase a certain color. This was but after further research, it appears that there is a actual medical purpose behind the color coding. That is to say that an orange cap needle, which seems to be the prevailing color, denotes a certain size of needle. A blue would denote another different size of needle. A white would be a different size. So really you can't achieve the purpose that's sought here by Councilor Leahy on the basis that, we wouldn't want to meddle with the, the medical need of them using a certain type of needle. Mm-hmm. Once you get into other things like stickers and other things, you can't really do that unless you had an arrangement with the manufacturer. You could do that under the FDA rules. However, it appears that the Needle Exchange program is purchasing their needles through some discount program, I believe, through the state, and so you would be really costing them money if we did it that way. So that's not really a viable option either. I think one of the questions is, what color are the needles that they're handing out now? Do you happen to know, Gabriel, or? Orange, okay. So, the caps, yeah, that's what you mean, yeah, the cap color, yeah. But that cap color means it's a point whatever size needle. It doesn't mean that it came from Holyoke. You could get that orange needle as easily anywhere else. So we have to just continue to think of innovative ways to try and denote it. But apparently, maybe why we see so many orange needles, and we see the pictures on Facebook and otherwise. It's just that those happen to be the size. So it looked like a possible solution, but this does not look like this could be changed.
Right, and what we have before us is the order stipulates that we create an ordinance, but we really can't create an ordinance that's, in opposition to federal regs. So we'll have to, address the status of the order in some way. Councilor Lisi?
I'd like the committee to know that through all the conversations we had, I filed an order for the next meeting that asks Rep. Vega and Senator Humison to file some state legislation that requires any location that dispenses needles or sells needles to also accept them free of charge. Because one of the things that came out of our discussions here is that there aren't many disposal locations compared to the number of places that you could actually buy needles by the hundreds or 500s. So we should really be asking our state delegation to require that all locations that are either dispensing or selling needles be required to take them back.
It's a good idea.
And I welcome anyone to sign on.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I think that, and that's certainly something to consider. I think the goal of this order, and when Councilor Leahy spoke to it, he was looking for accountability of the people who are handing them out. He was trying to be able to have a link between the giving and what's going on with them.
Well, yeah, the purpose was an obvious one, which is,
Right.
actually, in a way, I thought it was helpful to the needle exchange. If they could use all pink needles or green needles, then this way, if there's no green needles found on the street, nobody could say, well, that came from the needle exchange program because it's got orange.
Right.
But these colors, you can't change those. They can't pick all one color because it's designed around size. It has nothing to do with an optional color coding.
Right.
So we've learned that now, and
So what is the pleasure of the
I
committee
think
relative
the
to
order is
this
just
order?
complied with, or leave to withdraw, or complied with.
Councilor Bartley?
We reviewed it.
Complied with, it's my motion.
Second.
So we have a motion that's complied with. All in favor?
Aye.
Complied with in that we reviewed it
Yeah,
to see
Right.
if possible.
That's right.
and it is not.
Onward.
Motion to take item 5 off the table.
All in favor?
Aye.
That the ordinance committee create an ordinance for the Adopt an Island program with the following intersections in the city near 391, et cetera, if you don't mind an abbreviated reading. Also that a $200 fine for trespassing, leaning against any signposts, plus a no litter sign be erected at all intersections. The program will be run or managed by DPW with enforcement from the police. So at our last meeting, we began an initial discussion. Councilor Lopez brought in some draft language, and I think we had actually agreed that we would give a little bit more time on this one.
Yes,
We may have, in all the tabled items, putting them onto this, gone a little fast forward on this one, I think. But,
Stay tabled, or?
Yeah, we can table
but
and then,
keep it on the table. I think we had actually said December, right? If I
well, we
remember
will-
correctly. I'm
I-
not sure.
I need to get the information to the legal department, and
Okay.
hopefully we will get a draft, and then we can go forward with that.
So do you want us to go till the end of December on it, maybe?
I will do my best to see if I can get that information to her soon, and then whenever we can get that information, we can, if we can put it back in 2 weeks and see if we can get it done.
Well,
Maybe straightforward.
all right, well, all right, so I'll go 2 weeks.
Yeah, please.
All right, so motion is to table. Oh,
So,
Councilor
so there's a pretty handy little application on the South Hadley website, I think you.
Yes.
Yes,
so
he,
there's a-
Yeah.
So,
So I will forward that
I
to
mean, you
her.
can pretty much, well, I mean, pretty much find it fast, quick without forwarding, it, but if you need to forward it, I have it, so.
you can just
just-
forward
just
it right
FYI.
now. I think I
suppose
printed
could,
it
but-
out.
So there's, I mean, it's a great program. I wish those that, if I may, Madam Chair.
Councilor
that-
Bartley, sure.
That if you're gonna adopt these little planters and these traffic islands, I mean, I think an application is the way to go. I mean, have some accountability, take some pride in them.
Make it formal.
I mean, take some pride in it. That's why I try to tell, have some pride in the city. I mean, I try to tell their counselors and other executives, remove your signs. Take the signs down. I know we don't have an ordinance about it, but, I mean, mine were down that night. They're eviscerated.
Well, we do have actually an
So-
ordinance.
Board versus citywide.
Gee whiz, but you got a week to do it. I mean, so, I'm sorry about that. Take your signs down. And I'll stack up the number I had compared to just about any at-large counselor, be truthful with your counselor. So I'm pretty sure that I had more signs up than just virtually any city
file an
council.
order with you
Okay,
on
so any city councilor. So if I can take down 73 signs and get them down election night, I think any at-large counselor can do the same. So.
I'm happy to report mine are all down because they never went up.
So, I mean,
We can file an order on
that's
that.
just an aside.
I used to have hundreds.
Well,
73, that's, I used to put those up for days.
It's the driving around the city that's
gee whiz, that's too bad. So, I mean, somehow you manage to put them up by driving around the city, you can manage to take them down by driving around the city.
Some councils are on
So,
some streets.
But it's really about the adopt island thing. If you're gonna do it, take some pride in it, so, you know, if you have to have an application, then have an application. I actually felt good getting off my chest, I gotta admit that.
Absolutely. Very therapeutic.
But he digresses.
Excellent, excellent.
It was cathartic, actually. And take them out to buildings while you're at it, Mayor, so that'd be helpful, too.
Right.
All right.
We'll file an order.
So I'll make a
in that
motion to
regard.
table item 5.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Motion
I'm
to,
tabling it to 2 weeks.
Yeah, please,
Okay.
and I will make sure that we get that to the legal department.
Okay, onward. Item 6.
motion to remove item 6 from the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have an update.
Filed by Counselor Jordan, ordered that the city council create and adopt a new comprehensive ethics ordinance. You should all have an updated copy
Yes,
in your hand.
yes.
Thank you, Crystal. I passed
Excellent,
it over
please.
to you.
I don't have a copy.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Ethics?
Ethics?
Yeah.
You grab those from Crystal. Oh, sure. Oh.
Great.
Oh, well, thank you.
I do not have the new ethics ordinance.
No.
I have the old.
I have the one, I don't think there's been a change since the last meeting. No, we had, oh, what am I doing? I got the wrong folder up. Excuse me.
Oh, here we go. This is the only one I got. This is
Yeah,
the
that
old
was the one from the last
It's the
meeting.
same draft
Oh, it's
we
the
already
same. No,
had.
okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Yo, I don't have a
Mr.
copy.
Joe did not.
And I think,
I can give you mine, but I need it back. No, you can keep it.
I promise you.
Crystal, did you
You got it.
I'm a speed reader deal.
do this again tonight, right, the ethics one?
No, no,
Oh, you did not?
no.
Oh, okay, all right.
You can borrow that if you want. That's the current draft. Okay.
Okay.
So,
So,
By way of
we're
updates?
on, yes, we're on the next agenda, item 6, and Counselor Jordan has the floor. We have the draft that we had from the last meeting.
yes. You want me to pick it up from
So
there?
on 11/2, I had written a note, send to legal for updated draft amended for November 14th on my notes.
Yes.
But I,
Okay. So we have the draft, all good stuff. We have, I met with the law department. They also came up with a copy of the Springfield ethics ordinance, which is quite extensive, to the tune of about 19 pages. So the goal is, I was given this and to look through and actually look at things that we can also add to the draft. So looking at this, looking at the draft, and then the goal was to table for today, incorporate, and I'd like the committee's blessing to work through with the law department to take certain items from the Springfield, incorporate that into this, so that for the next meeting, these items are in the draft, that are picked out of this. So you actually have what I would call a final draft for you to make amendments from. What I'd also wanted to talk to you about is the understanding we have relative to the pay-to-play modifications. So as you know, we have section 2-335, which has the requirements for contracts exempt from the competitive bidding process. I think it's fair for me to say that the law department's view is that that can be incorporated for 3 areas. One is the current towing, which we already knew about, that was contemplated. I think it's fair for me to say that they're of the view that that would also cover contracts that are not competitively bid, such as broker of record insurance and the legal services contracts. So those are the 3 main ones that we wanted to police, if you will, because those are the ones that are sort of the source of concern. We're not talking about contracts that are generally, some school department book contract or things of that nature. So what is, I'm requesting after discussion with the law department is that we go through what we can like for additional suggestions from Springfield into the main body of our draft for the ethics. Then have that come up at our next ordinance meeting. However, if we would like, the law department said, if we wanted to have a meeting of the ordinance committee on Monday, we could do the revisions just to 2-335. There was a couple sentences that they wanted to put in, just clarifying language that they thought was helpful, that I support, and that they really spell out the scope, which would be to incorporate towing, legal services, and insurance contracts as under the scope of 2335. And, go ahead.
But I thought you were rolling it into this.
Huh? Well, that we actually could leave in place. We wouldn't, if we made those changes under the procurement ordinance to 2335, we wouldn't need to then bring it into this because that would cover it. It would be all set. The pay to play would be all taken care of. It wouldn't need to come into this ordinance.
For 3 categories.
Correct.
So
basically, the pay-to-play stuff with one, they stated, I think it's fair to say, and they would have it ready for a draft for Monday, would be to, for a discussion, if we wish, to just make those revisions to 2335, and that would take care of the pay-to-play piece. Then this would be all the other stuff other than pay-to-play, and we would take that up at the next ordinance meeting. The alternative is we could not have the meeting on Tuesday if we didn't want to vote on the pay-to-play stuff at the next council meeting. We could do this all in one set of votes on the same evening, which would probably end up being the first meeting in December, where we would vote on the new ethics ordinance, because they need a little bit more time on this. That one just needs tweaking. This one still needs more work and they need more time, which I respect. They have a full plate. But they did commit to say that they could do that, a draft for the next ordinance meeting, so that we could
if it was Monday?
No. If we, regular ordinance meeting. But before the first meeting in December. So maybe I know are we gonna have a meeting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving? I don't know. Were we planning on that? Would be the 28th, actually, right? It's 2 weeks.
No, Thanksgiving's
from
the
tonight.
23rd.
Oh, okay, then this would be the Tuesday.
We'd have our normal meeting.
On the 28th of November.
Yeah.
So that's when we would come up, and then we would have a vote on that on the first meeting in December.
Okay, so I just want to remind the committee of what we did at the last meeting, and I don't know what your intention is now, having met with the legal staff. But at the last meeting, we had done an amendment to page 3, adding in-kind contributions. We had added a whole section, 2.68.42. None of that language has been updated. So
that needs to all go in there.
So at this time, because I'm still looking at my handwritten.
But in fairness, though, 2.6842, which we're doing as no municipal official shall accept a political contribution from anyone holding any city contract with an annual value greater than $40,000. What they're explaining is they can revise 2-335 to do that. So we wouldn't need to add that amendment here. It would be incorporated in that other ordinance.
Whether it's competitive or non-competitive?
Unless, that one is strictly for what are non-competitive. I think the view is, the concern, we're not really seeing historically donations coming from the competitively bid contracts. It's these non-competitive where, basically you have an advertisement, the mayor just picks, and the contract's not going through the state procurement, no RFR.
Okay, and then we had the other section, 2.68.43, no municipal official shall accept a political contribution from any person or business with an application before the body.
Yeah, that should go into the draft, that's, and then we can consider that, yep,
That
absolutely.
could be materially affected. I'm just pointing out that if you take what is typed and you only add from Springfield, you've lost what we did last.
Oh, yeah, no, that was not the intention of my remarks. I want to incorporate what you just said from
All
the
right.
last, it's the draft plus our last meeting plus Springfield will go into the draft for the next meeting on November 28th.
Okay, and at our last meeting, we also had at least one question, two questions for Crystal relative to the draft. One was, we didn't understand the whole underlying section under 2.68.8A. A portion that's blacked out and underlined.
Oh, that's talking about,
And at the time, Crystal wasn't here, which we understood, but there was a question. People were wondering if she could explain to us, because we didn't understand the basis for it.
yeah, that's the section, Crystal, just to help you with, is city councilors also being simultaneously employed for the city. That's that section, and the original said you can't, and then it was watered, I don't want to use that word. Other language was put in that said you can do it as long as you don't take the two salaries, and the question is why, and I think you were still looking into it some more.
So I think it was this big section you have X'd out here. That's actually the language from the state ethics law. That's 268A. So I was giving us the broad version of it rather than making it super strict as far as not being able to be on council and an employee of the city. So I was just going back to the state's language here.
And there was a discussion, I know I spoke to Paul, and I gave, basically a little bit of a history about it where we've had somewhat conflicting interpretation of the rules and if we can be stricter. I cited the 1995 George Cruz example where he wasn't allowed to be a city employee at the DPW and serve on the city council, or the mid-2000s situation where we had Don Welch, who was a police officer and simultaneously a city councilor, that being the first time ever that a city employee actually also served. In his situation, they came to some middle position of as long as he doesn't take the salary. The question is, how can we have something more strict than 268A? Paul was still looking, and Crystal were still looking into that. I think what she's putting here is this would be the minimum standard because that's the state law.
Well, that's just what we wanted to understand, because
Right.
we weren't sure where it was coming from. And then I wrote a similar note 2 or 3 pages later. I can't even remember what the words are, but.
So I think you're looking at the violations and penalties section. So we talked a little bit about what to do in the instance that this needs to be enforced. There's still going to be some drafts to kind of tweak this out as far as what to do in that instance. The state actually has it in place so that any opinions sought out would actually go to the city solicitor's office, and that's kind of what we reiterated here. Can't really read the rest.
Well, I think the question, Linda, that you were raising there was, do we want to have strict enforcement provisions, or did we want something that just said the the city solicitor shall determine what they want to do for an enforcement provision. And
So our thinking there was a lot of the enforcement we can't really do alone. So our theory for some of that language was to bring it to the State Ethics Committee, let them make an opinion to kind of assist us. A lot of litigation can't come from the solicitor's office. I mean, a lot of times we represent the city, so there's a conflict there. I know you have some language circled regarding putting language into contracts. We had a little bit of a discussion about the fact that a lot of our contracts, we've worked hard to kind of get into template form, so putting the onus on us to have to go and now edit every contract we have to put in a clause may not make sense so much as to put something into place for, say, a disclosure form or, a waiver form that someone could sign in signing a contract as sort of a packet situation that we could even provide to procurement. So we're trying to be proactive instead of reactive in some of these instances. So we're going to start starting to draft some of those forms and procedures and see where we can get from there.
So just to clarify, my hen scratch.
Okay.
The language that we had added was to protect for the exact thing you're talking about, was the failure to include this clause does not release the parties from the binding authority of the ordinance. Mm-hmm. It was to protect that in the event that there was an editorial error in a contract, then the person couldn't stand on that and say, oh, the ordinance doesn't apply to me.
I think forcing them to read some sort of disclaimer or read some sort of warranty is going to be better than them relying on their ordinance they may not have a chance to read, but at least it puts it in front of them.
That was just what we were
that makes sense.
Going for in that regard.
Maybe, I was thinking about if we're going to have another meeting on this, what I think would probably be best is let's get the 2-335 amendment to the committee. If you could send this in Word, we can make sure these new meeting changes from the last meeting are made. We'll have everything in front of the committee. I will file that other order on the 2335 change, so that'll come to ordinance. We'll do everything at the next ordinance meeting, and then for the first meeting in December, we could actually take some votes. Because I think we'll be at whatever the final amendments of the committee are at the next ordinance.
On the 28th?
Yes.
That makes sense.
So, 20, whatever.
I think it's the 28th, 2 weeks from today, right? I think that's today. Today's the 14th, right? Yeah. All right.
So did you have any specific recommendations for us out of the Springfield draft? I mean, is that why?
I think she's still going through it.
I don't. It's 19 pages, not including their new casino regulations as well. So there's actually pages missing.
And it's interesting to note that the state legislature put a provision in the state law affecting municipalities on no casino operator, officer, or employee can make any donation to a local municipal official. Thought that was an interesting provision.
But he can to a state elected official, right?
I'm not sure about that one.
Nice
That's a good
company,
question. I would hope not.
See, to me, it should be, you don't pick and choose which one.
Right, it should be all of them.
It should be all of them.
Right, right.
Not the flavor of the week can't, and the other one can. I
Right.
mean, it's just,
So we're getting there. I think we're very, very close, and I think we're gonna, I think we're on the same page, the law department and us, and so we'll get there by the next meeting.
Can I get a copy of the Springfield one? No, that would be-
Absolutely, yeah. Could you?
is it on?
It's online. You just
online.
Google
It's
City
chapter
of Springfield.
30. It's chapter 38 of Springfield.
I'm just curious why we're just starting to look at that now.
It just
I'm
came
just
up. She just became aware of it.
Oh, okay.
So I was
There
aware
were a
of.
bunch of other ones you looked at,
Yeah, but
right?
we weren't aware that Springfield had one.
Oh, okay.
So we might get a couple good ideas. I mean, it's not gonna, a lot of the stuff that they have is already in our draft. But we might pick
Just
up
to be
something that we
sure.
didn't think of.
All right.
And if we can get the good amendment on the 2-335 and these final edits that we put in, plus whatever we come up with for amendments at the next meeting, I think we'll be in good shape.
All right. Then I hear your motion is to table.
Yes. Motion to table. Could you give me that Word version of the draft, the current draft? This one, the red line? If you could email that to me. Okay, great. And And then section 38, counselors, is the ordinance from Springfield. If you want to look it up on Muni Code, or E-Code 360 is also theirs. Okay, motion to table.
All in favor? Aye. Table to the 28th.
Yep. And then the goal is, we're going to wrap everything up that night.
Alrighty.
All right.
I don't know if what your pleasure is with 7.
Keep 7 on the table. I think that we're working through that with these 2, 3, 3, 5 issues. So take item number 8 off the table.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I think didn't we do this at the last?
I thought we passed it, but
I thought we did it at the
were
last
we waiting for
meeting.
some final language or something, or? I think we asked,
It's just,
thought we adopted and asked it to be put in the legal
it's
form, didn't we?
just no parking. Do you have this for legal form yet?
Fenton Street?
I think we did.
We did pass it at the last
I
meeting.
think it got maybe picked up in error because it's been such a long lag between all our meetings and the city council meeting. So I think we've already dealt with it, but let me pull out my old agenda just to be sure. But it was non-controversial, and my idea was I didn't want to have to pull it out of committee at the city council meeting. I'd rather deal with it in committee.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think we're,
Shouldn't be too controversial.
I think we're all set with it.
That's not usually too
No,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to,
I don't think there's going to be battles over that, are we?
if you just want to affirm it,
Yeah.
if you just want to affirm it, tonight we can.
Sure.
Since it's not over to legal form yet,
Motion to affirm.
just approve. Just be nice. I know. Motion to approve is on the table.
Motion approved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If we did it twice, it's better than nothing.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Overkill is always okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I know, doubly official. Copy
you're
that.
double covered
Yeah,
if
there you go.
anything.
Which brings us
Okay,
to
we already
item 10,
dealt-
which I make a motion to remove from the table.
All in favor? Aye.
Motion approved.
Second.
Well, I believe we have the final language now as amended from the last
We do,
meeting.
motion,
It's in front
it's
of
right
us.
here, it's about as basic
This
as
is
you can
good.
get.
One full sentence,
Yep,
but it says a mouthful.
it's on the motion.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was it. There you go.
Take 11 off the table.
Second.
All in
If so
favor?
needed.
Aye. That we adopt state law, chapter 17A, if necessary, or enforce this state law if adoption of the law is not needed, and the rest of the language is just the law, which I've read into the record, I think, more than once. So I guess the question was, what did we need to do to have this as an ordinance?
So we actually have a chart of all the state laws that we adopt. So I didn't provide any legal language. I think this is something that can just go into that chart if you're wanting to adopt it. So rather than try and figure out how to make that into legal language, I didn't.
So if we would be in order then, if we have a motion to adopt this law?
Yeah, it's a local option law.
Chapter 85, section 17A, if you want to make that official.
Chapter 85,
85.
17.
Okay.
So this would go under the chart in our Code of Ordinances is Part 1, Subpart C, and it's basically a list of chapter and section and what that Mass General Law is.
Okay. Because the police officers are always asking for something
Yep.
that they can have as a law so that they can act when they see people doing these things, going into the roadway, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought we already had it, but we didn't. And so it's just another tool in the toolbox.
So this was great. It put this on their radar. I did pass this to the chief of police. I know an email went out to kind of say, hey, this is actually on Mass General Laws. What can we do with it? I did a follow-up email today, this afternoon. Unfortunately, it was late this afternoon, so I don't have any response back. But we are in contact with them to kind of
Right.
put this out there
Well,
and see what they're going to do with
thank
it.
you for that, and I'm going to persist on this matter until we get some positive changes in this city. So thank you for your help on that.
Great catch on your part, finding the state law. That's great legal review. Make a motion to be adopted.
I'm going to second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's the end of our meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn
No debate.
at 8:25 as opposed to the clock that says 9:25.
How's that? Yes, and we were saved because our last meeting, I do think, was the standard 3 hours, so we would have been here for another
we were spoiled.
had we not put in a little extra effort. So I thank all of you who could do that.
Great.
And,
Great job, colleagues.
All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
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 Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Mike, you see anything? I can't find anything. The ER's in lockdown.
What is it?
The ER is in lockdown?
Yeah,
What happened? Somebody?
not like a shooting, but
Oh, no, that's the last thing I want to hear.
a friend of mine's in town.
In Hoyt.
Yeah, but went to see his mother and couldn't get in.
As if you don't have enough problems, you're in the emergency.